One rainy night in October, a man was driving past the cemetery. He saw a young boy walking in the rain. The man stopped and asked the boy if he wanted a ride. The boy approached the car. His face was pale, his clothes were wet, and he was shaking like a leaf. He opened the door and got into the passenger seat without saying a word. The man felt sorry for the boy, so he gave him a red sweater to keep him warm. The boy's teeth were chattering and he was still shivering. When they got to the boy's house, the man stopped the car. The boy got out, and the man told the boy to keep the sweater and said he would come back for it the next day. "What's your name?" asked the man. "Timmy," the boy replied. The next day, the man went to the boy's house to pick up his sweater. When he knocked on the door, a woman answered. The man introduced himself and asked if she was Timmy's mother. "What's this about?" she said. The man explained that he had given Timmy a ride that night before, in the pouring rain, and he had given him a red sweater to keep him warm. The woman stared at him and her eyes welled up with tears. I'm sorry, you must be mistaken," she said. "My son Timmy died almost a year ago." The man apologized and left. He was very confused, and his head was spinning. He drove to the cemetery and found Timmy's grave. Lying on top of the grave was his red sweater.
Do you have a Facebook account? You know, those people on Facebook that you don't even know that try to add you. Well, I'm one of those people. It all started about a year ago. A lot of things have happened since then. I never really had any intention of joining Facebook in the first place. I didn't want to humiliate myself by letting the whole world know how unpopular I was. I was a first-class loner. I barely had any friends. I hated how no one ever talked to me. People treated me like I didn't even exist. I kept hearing people talking about Facebook, and I decided to create an account. It was kind of scary at first, letting the entire world know what I was doing. I was giving up my privacy and freedom, but I thought it might help me finally fit in. At first, Facebook seemed very foreign to me. I had 0 messages, 0 notifications, and 0 friend invites. It was just like in real life. Only this time, the whole world could see it. Regardless, I started exploring the site. I can still recall the first thing I did when I started using Facebook. Remember the game with the fish? You know that game, right? It was my favorite. I used to spend hours on it. I would buy countless fish, but I never feed them. I just wanted to watch them die. Watching fish die was so much fun. I probably would have played it forever if I hadn't received that first friend request. I couldn't believe it. Somebody wanted to be my friend. I eagerly clicked accept. It was the best feeling that I could ever describe. After I clicked on the person's profile, I saw what Facebook was really all about. He had hundreds of friends and countless status updates, all of them with at least 5 likes each, so I wanted that as well. I began to snoop through his friends list and I added every single person that he was friends with. It took about 5 hours, but it was worth it. I didn't really know any of them, and some of them just ignored me, but others accepted my request without thinking twice. As soon as I became friends with them on Facebook, I was able to learn everything about them. I passed the first 2 weeks adding people. Then, I added everyone they knew. Before long, my popularity began growing exponentially. People finally knew who I was. It was all so wonderful. Some of the kids at my school even started talking to me. It was insane. I began to fall in love with social networking. I became a Facebook addict. I hated not being online. The thought of not knowing what everyone was doing or what they were thinking was overwhelming. I hated the time I had to spend in school. Every hour away from Facebook seemed like spending an eternity in hell. I spent every free moment I had on the site. I began dreaming about using it, and soon enough, I stopped dreaming altogether. I developed insomnia, which was great for me because it meant I could spend even more time on Facebook, especially since the school year had just ended. It was sweet to be able to spend every single waking moment of my life on Facebook. But spending so much time on it allowed me to also see the dark side of Facebook. There were a lot of people on there that still refused to accept my friend request. I had sent thousands upon thousands, and yet, still I only had around 2,000 friends. It was obvious that those people had something against me. Why else would they not want to be friends with me? Yes, why else? There had to be a solution to all this madness, and it was obvious. Yes, it was also clear then. All I had to do was get rid of them. I still remember my first victim. Truly, I had nothing against her. She was so young, so beautiful, and so innocent. I will never forget those eyes, those piercing black eyes. The thing I remember most about her was how much she bled and how loud she screamed. I relive that feeling every time I choose a new victim. Come to think of it, I just sent you a friend request. If I were you, I'd think twice about clicking deny. I watched as my soon-to-be father-in-law held his daughter's hand as he walked down the aisle. Tears streamed down his face as the wedding march that played in the background reminded him that, in a few minutes, he would be watching me hold his daughter's hand and slipping on her ring. He walked up to the altar and I took hold of her hand, grinning from ear to ear. It was the happiest day of my life. My bride's father got down on his knees and he started begging. Please, I did what you asked. Just please give me my daughter back. I glared at him. Shut up and stop ruining the moment. If you sit back down and enjoy the ceremony, maybe, just maybe, I'll tell you where I've hidden the rest of her body.
One morning, a man found himself walking along a deserted street in a small town. He had no idea what he was doing there, or how he got there in the first place, or where he'd been earlier. He didn't even know what time it was. He saw a woman walking towards him and stopped her. "I'm afraid I forgot my watch," he said with a polite smile. "Can you please tell me the time?" When the woman saw him, she screamed and ran away. The man was shocked. A few minutes later, he noticed that other people were afraid of him too. Whenever they saw him coming, they flattened themselves against a building, recoiled in horror, or ran across the street to stay out of his way. There must be something wrong with me, thought the man. I'd better go home as soon as possible. He stood for a few moments, wondering where he was, looked around, and hailed a taxi. But when the taxi driver laid eyes on him, he floored the gas pedal and sped away. "This is crazy," the man said to himself. He couldn't figure out what was wrong, and had no idea what was going on. All he knew was that he was scared and confused. "Maybe my wife can come pick me up," he thought. He found a telephone and called home, expecting to hear his wife's sweet voice. Instead, there was a strange voice on the other end of the phone. Is Mrs. Sullivan there?" he asked. "I'm sorry, she isn't," the voice said. "Her husband died a few days ago in a horrible car crash, and she's attending his funeral."
Don't Google yourself. Why? Because you may not like what you find. One day I was bored and decided to search my own name on Google. I have quite a rare name, so I didn't expect to find many results. Imagine how surprised I was when I came across a website that had my full name in the domain. When I clicked the link, it brought me to a message board. I looked at the profile of the website owner and found out that the person was the same age as me, had the same hobbies and interests. There weren't any posts on the message board, but I was intrigued, so I saved it to my favorites. It was about a month later when I went back to the website. This time, it had more content. There were some diary entries, mostly random things like the weather was nice today, or I'm so bored in work, things of that nature. However, as time went on, I began to notice more and more coincidences. The person lived in the same city as I did. It struck me as a rather strange that two people with the exact same rare name would be living in the same city at the same time. At one point, I noticed that the contents of the diary were quite similar to my own life. One day, I went to a baseball game, and when I checked the website that evening, I found that the owner of the site had also gone to the same ball game. At first, I didn't think much of it. After all, tens of thousands of people in the city supported the same baseball team. It began to seem like much more than a simple coincidence. Whenever I checked the website, I would notice little biographical details that seemed too close for comfort. For example, the owner mentioned their pet dog, and the dog's name was the same as my dog that I had when I was a child. The website owner posted a picture of their car. It was the same model car that I had been driving when I was in college. They talked about eating at a certain restaurant. It was the same restaurant I had gone to all the time when I was working at my previous job. One day when I looked at the message board, people had written messages to the owner saying, "Happy birthday." That day, well, it was my birthday as well. So I decided to write on the message board for the first time, just out of curiosity. I was going to wish the owner a happy birthday and tell them we had the same name. However, when I tried to write something, I realized there was nowhere to type your message. It wasn't a message board at all, just a static page. That's odd, I thought to myself. In other words, whoever owned the website had gone to a lot of trouble just to make it seem as if it was an interactive site, and if there were other people posting on it, when in actual fact all the content must have been created by the owner. Why on earth would someone do that, I wondered. So I decided to send an email to the owner. It read, "Hi there, believe it or not, we both share the same name. Nice to meet you." It was just a friendly email. The next day, when I tried to look at the website, I discovered it was gone. It seemed like it had been deleted. Then, I opened my mailbox. There was one reply, and when I looked at it, a chill ran down my spine. It just read, "Found you."